Welcome back, everybody. This is the Predictive Playbook. College football week one. Week one is here, and I can't be any more excited than I already am. And I have Jimmy Adams from WagerTalk joining me. We're going to break down a couple games in rapid fire fashion. We're not going to take much of your time. We're going to make these short and sweet and to the point. And welcome to the show, Jimmy. It's week one. How does that make you feel?
Oh man, I am so excited, John. We had a good start to the college campaign. We cashed with Fresno. I think a lot of people cashed, as UCLA covers and Fresno covers first half game, San Jose State covers. But yeah, I'm really excited for week one as we get a full slate of games.
I am too, so let's get right at it. We have Baylor playing at Texas State in a very interesting matchup. Baylor is basically a 13.5 point road favorite here. The over-under 53.5. And of course, it's being played at Bobcat Stadium in Texas, which is San Marcos, Texas. It's going to be hot. It's going to be 92 degrees. So that probably will be a factor for these athletes. But more importantly, I think I'm going to guess that you're leaning here for the upset. And I'm wondering if Texas State doesn't pull it off entirely and win straight up.
Yeah, no, this is absolutely one of my underdog plays of the week. We're going to look to Texas State plus almost the 2 touchdowns here. I'll give you a little analysis. So offensive team, you're going to see a lot of offense, not a whole lot of defense. They're going to be able to put up points in bunches against Baylor. This team had 21 transfers, so there's a big overhaul going on right now in San Marcos with Texas State. But they got a couple quarterbacks that can be efficient. Give you some numbers on one of them. Last year, quarterback Brady McBride, he had 8 starts, 1,925 yards, 17 TDs on just 7 interceptions. He had a passer efficiency rating of 133.6. And there's some competition for the job in camp. We may see a couple guys because Ty Evans transferred over from NC State. So they have some guys that can sling it around a little bit. The O-line gets 4 starters back, which is good news. And then running back Brock Sturgis returns also. He was their leading rusher from last year. So Texas State loves to throw the football. I mean, and they can put up a ton of points. Then you got Baylor, 2-7 last season. Dave Aranda comes in his second year. They finished 118th in the nation in total offense at 310 yards per game. Offense didn't score more than 24 points in 6 of the 9 games. So that should tell you something as they lay almost 2 touchdowns here. They got a new offensive coordinator in Jeff Grimes. He comes over from BYU. Obviously knows Zach Wilson to work with, so we'll see how that works out. Quarterback Charlie Brewer left for Utah. He's gone. And so there will be a couple guys, Zeno and Bohannon, that'll be throwing for Baylor. The defense gave up 29 points per game last season. And all that being said, I mean, this is a Texas State team that can really score. And giving them almost 2 touchdowns, looks like we have some value in our pocket, so I'll recommend the Texas State Bobcats plus the points this weekend.
Oh, I love it too. And I read some of my models, Jimmy, and you know all about them. And in college football, the number 28 is a pivot point in scoring. And to your point, Texas State, I think, can score 28 or more points in this contest. That doesn't mean that I'm playing the over, though. It just means that there's a high probability Texas State scores 28 or more. And in the last 10 seasons, when they have scored 28 or more, they are 29-5 against the numbers. So I think if you see Texas State start scoring in this game, maybe an in-game money line bet would be a pretty good thing to do as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Texas State, Baylor shouldn't be laying 2 touchdowns to very many teams at all until we see what they're made of. So fire away.
Yeah, I agree. And we're going to move right on to the Big Ten here. And this is a game that I wanted to preview. And it is Penn State against Wisconsin in a huge showdown for week one. Not quite as big as that Georgia-Clemson game that is taking place 7:30 on Saturday. But this game is taking place at high noon, which is going to fill up our day, and college football fans around the world will be able to start at noon and just go right through the day and right through the night, just like we love to do. So here we have James Franklin taking his Penn State crew to Wisconsin, coming off a really erratic COVID year, losing 5 straight, then winning 4 straight. And, I said it so many times, you just take these outliers, you can't make any sense of it. And none of my models are going to make any sense of it. So we simply delete the COVID year. I don't think it brings any bearing whatsoever. Maybe some value in the SEC conference, which seemed to get a lot more games in easier than not. But I think, this year there's a lot of starters coming back, and that's because of the rule change that allowed seniors to have an additional year because of the COVID situation. But, James or Clifford, the quarterback for Penn State, was under fire last year by the fans, by the student body. But he's very talented, and he has a tremendously strong arm. He's going to have one of the best wide receiver cores in the Big Ten, and I'll go on the line and say I'll take the wide receivers for Penn State and put them up against Ohio State. And most people would say Ohio State's are much, much better. But I think what you're going to see this year is a tremendous bounce back by this program. They went ahead of Michigan in 4- and 5-star recruiting. Michigan is declining. And I see no other way to bet this game. I think the line is telling you at 4.5 that Penn State is the play. And I will recommend doing 80% of the play on the spread and then 20% of your normal size bet on the money line. So simply said, you bet $100 a game, that's $80 on the spread, then sprinkle $20 more on the money line. And I think Penn State starts out the season 1-0 with a big road upset win. What do you think of that one, Jimmy?
Yeah, I mean, I can't disagree. On paper, these teams look pretty evenly matched to me, and we've seen a lot of steam come towards Wisconsin. And so I guess you have to take into account that home field advantage and how much you think it's really worth. But at 5.5, it's going to be really hard to get to the window with Wisconsin just because of how evenly matched these teams are. I agree with what you said about Penn State having a lot of talent. Wisconsin, surprisingly, they didn't do a great job rushing the ball last year, and they're going to try and get back to their normal, run first, old school, take care of the football, force turnovers, play defense, control time of the possession type game. So, with the number where it's at, I can't disagree with your play on the Nittany Lions.
And I'll add this too as a last remark about Penn State. They were 4-5 last year, which puts them in a win percentage between 40 and 49% on the season. And did you know that road underdogs that were a losing record team between 40 and 50% win percentage are 34-10 for 77% over the last 5 seasons? I'm telling you, it tells you to take Penn State, take the points, and don't be surprised if they win. And probably that, I'm going to say it, then I think they're going to win by double digits. There, I said it, Jimmy.
Wow.
That's a bold call, but the math is telling me that. It's not something I'm making up. It's what the models are telling me.
How many points do you factor in at Madison, Wisconsin for home field advantage, given that it's such a hostile environment?
It's 2. Believe it or not. To your point, it's not that much because the other games don't get nearly as fired up. I can say the same thing about Penn State as well.
Yeah.
They have the second biggest stadium, I guess, in North America. 110,800, I think, is the current seating. And I've been there at games at night. And when it's on national TV, and Michigan comes to mind when they came there.
Place is rocking.
Then it rocks like you can't believe. And it's packed in. And you're basically sitting on top of each other. Your knees are in the back with the people in front of you. But nobody cares because we've been tailgating all day. But it's just an amazing atmosphere when they have the white out. The whole stadium, 111,000 people in white. And there's just nothing like it. So Wisconsin doesn't have that type of advantage, in my opinion. It's a smaller stadium. It's still quite large. But obviously, Michigan has the biggest stadium. And, not trying to get Michigan fans angry at me, but if they did have a head coach, that stadium would be more of a home field advantage than it is. But unfortunately, they haven't done so well in recent years, and I don't think they're going to do well again. So I'm on it. I'm on the Nittany Lions this week, plus a lot of others.
Very
And
nice.
we got Jesse Schule joining us here
Top
to
of the
end
morning
our
to you
show.
guys.
We already previewed two upsets. Now, Jimmy didn't go out on a limb and say Texas State was going to beat Baylor. But I went out on a limb, and I'm calling the upset possible double-digit win by the Penn State Nittany Lions over the Wisconsin Badgers at noon on Saturday. What do you have for us, Jesse?
I'm looking at LSU at the Rose Bowl taking on UCLA. Of course, the big story is Hurricane Ida, and I think that's prompted a lot of bettors to look at fading LSU, thinking they've got so much to deal with the hurricane and the travel and practicing at different facilities and this and that. But I would say that if you already liked UCLA, the hurricane's not going to help. So you're going to like it even more. But if you already liked LSU, I wouldn't change your mind. I mean, I think it's interesting to point out that in 2006, the Saints had to deal with something similar. Of course, it's the pros; they're a little older and more established, but they did follow up Hurricane Katrina by going 13-3 and winning the Super Bowl. We've seen a lot of pro athletes and amateur athletes overcome a lot of things, and I don't think you should overreact to the hurricane and the relocating of games.
Yeah, and it's I guess it is going to be a way out there on the West Coast, I believe, is what I saw. So it's not going to be. They couldn't play in New Orleans. That's the way it is, and that's a very unfortunate situation. One question for you: UCLA, just does what we thought they would do. We said it on the show. Do you think having the game advantage, having played a game, having played a winning game, having actually a running game under Chip Kelly, who I thought he had forgotten how to hand the ball off for the last 7 years, but do you think those two things are a big factor here that could see an upset over LSU?
I think it's an advantage to have a game under your belt. I think DTR at quarterback for UCLA looks like he needs all the snaps he can get, all the practice he can get. But and yeah, the running game looked good, but I mean that was against Hawaii. Now you're trying to run against an SEC team. You want to expect your offensive line. The highly touted offensive line at UCLA. They've returned, I think, 10 starters on both sides of the ball. But who are these recruits in comparison to the recruits that LSU has and the offense or the defensive front that LSU has? I mean, I think it would be a little naive to expect you're going to dominate those guys the same way you did Hawaii or anybody or even the rest of the Pac-12. So yeah, I think it's an advantage to have played a game. Is it enough of an advantage? Not if DTR comes out and completes 50% of his passes.
Yeah, to your point, he was a whopping 12 for 22 for 148 passing yards. I think he was sacked a couple times too, which brought it down to like 135. And I did see a little bit of his press statement too that they were asking him about the accuracy and the arm and a whole bunch of questions. And he says, "I just need to get better. It was a great team win." So he did say the right thing, but you're absolutely right about the need for him to really step up this week against a big step up in the competition against LSU. But it certainly will be fun to watch UCLA again this year. They have the offense. So
I,
I guess
I did
that'll.
notice the total dropped from it's opened at 70. It's looking like it's hovering around 65 now. So that's an indication to me that bettors are looking at the UCLA offense and thinking they're not going to be able to pile on the points quite as high as they might have thought heading into the season.
Yep, I agree with that. It's and that defensive front is for real for LSU as well. That's arguably one of the top five in the conference. And Well, let's recap our picks. We have Jimmy Adams. He is on Texas State when they host Baylor, plus 13.5 point underdog. And I'm just adding a little fuel to it, just sprinkle a little bit on the money line there. Pizza money, and maybe a pizza money line bet parlay with Penn State and Texas State. And I would not add UCLA because we're questioning their ability to compete at a much, much higher level. So those are two pizza money bets. And then I have on Penn State plus 4.5. And Jesse, your pick is the
I like LSU.
LSU, right? I just wanted to make sure, because I know you were talking about the total as well. So lay the points with LSU. I think that is a value bet for sure because now recency bias, UCLA looked like, oh my goodness, they could win the Pac-12. And that the market has adjusted and quite rapidly. I think if UCLA wins by 7 against Hawaii and doesn't cover the spread, you'd probably see this number a lot higher than where it is right now. So, guys, thanks for your time. This is the end of our first quick-hitting college football segment. We have the 3 bets that I just listed. So, on behalf of Jesse, Jimmy, myself, and Adam Trigger, who we recorded earlier today, may all the wins be yours.